The shares of the company themselves sliding as well in pre-market trading after reporting third-quarter results that were well below expectations. Brian Nagel of Oppenheimer joined us earlier on the show and is now standing by on the Squawk Newsline with more on the numbers. Brian, if you had to put a finger on it, what would you say happened?
Well, let's start by saying it's clearly a disappointment. But we dig through this release and dig through the results here of Best Buy, it's a pretty singularly focused disappointment. That's sales. Now, what's interesting to me, I was watching our show this morning, I'm making the comment that it's been our view that sales likely got better at Best Buy through the quarter. The company didn't mention in their press release this morning anything about a trend through the quarter, which I think is interesting. They did call out in several cases that they lost market share, which, again, is concerning for Best Buy investors. But, on the upside here, obviously the stock's trading lower this morning, so the market's clearly disappointed with this. But, there are some positives here. One, the gross margins held in very well for them, which suggests, like I was talking about this morning, you're seeing continued strength in categories like mobile. The company is controlling costs very well with SG&A spending that's barely above flat, and they're buying back a lot of stock.
Yeah.
So really the miss was on sales.
But if an investor is trying to look for a culprit, is it overall demand, which obviously would then threaten the outlook for the holidays, or is it really about share? And if so, losing to whom?
It's a tough call. But if I look at this release and and try to sort of say read between the lines, and understand the tone of what Best Buy is saying, I think it's more share. I think it's more share. So it's interesting. I know you guys commented that I think the futures are down right now on this as well. What I'm seeing in retail generally, this is an outlier right now. So I think it is. I think it's Best Buy, and it's losing share, and to whom it's probably the discounters, et cetera. Now, again, the question I want to get, and they're going to have their conference call later this morning, is, okay, what happened through the quarter? What happened as we moved closer to the holiday season?
What is it? Did they offer more and more sales to try and reverse some of the trends and get people back in?
Well, what we saw through the quarter, and again, is looking at the TV category, is that prices declined. We saw these price declines in TV start to take hold more as we got towards November. Which I think would be a positive. Obviously other chains as well as Best Buy were benefiting from that as well. But that's something I think that's going to be a key factor here. Now, of course, they did lower their guidance for the year in reflecting the weaker sales, which could be a signal too they expect sales to stay soft.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. In terms of the forecast, does that bode badly for everybody else? So you're talking about an outlier this quarter, but in terms of the way they're forecasting it, is that also going to be an outlier?
So far, yeah. So far, is it an outlier? Yes. When I was talking to you guys earlier this morning, we had, again, it's kind of a silly data point because Home Depot, which is not typically viewed as a holiday play, but we were with them yesterday at their last week at their annual analyst meeting, and they were talking about sales strength. We've seen indications of sales strength elsewhere. So right now, I'd have to say, Best Buy looks like an outlier.
Don, you got a quick thought on it, knowing the chain like you do?
Well, I'm curious, Brian, whether you've had enough chance to look at the data to see, is this all about TVs, or is it more than that for Best Buy?
It's difficult to say at this moment. If I look at some of the category data they gave us as far as sales, TVs look like to be a big culprit, but there was also, they lumped their sales also in things like home office, which seemed to be a little bit weaker too, which may have been things like laptops.
Okay. Brian, appreciate the guidance on both sides of that number today.
Great, thank you.
Brian Nagel over at Oppenheimer.